Welcome to the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles, the original food service equipment repair podcast built by technicians for technicians. Whether you're on the front lines of repair, keeping the kitchen running smoothly, or just passionate about the food service repair industry, this podcast is your go-to source for expert insight, tech tips, and real stories from the field. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles. I am your host, Pat Finley. I got Rich back, and we got a very special guest, Troy Duff. But first, this episode of the Commercial Kitchen This episode of the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles is proudly sponsored by Viper. Viper brings you NSF-registered coil cleaning products, the legendary nylon for sealing threads and gaskets, and solutions for heat protection like wet rag. Viper's HVACR products were crafted by HVAC technicians themselves, so you know they mean business. Plus, Viper believes in non-toxic solutions because performance should never come with a compromise. Maintain your cool with Viper. So what is going on, everybody?
Living that dream out here. How about y'all?
Well, it looks like Rich got kicked out
the same thing. What happened?
I said, it looks like Rich got kicked out to the car.
Yeah. Too many people over.
Is this that new service truck you got?
100%. I'm actually testing out the Wi-Fi in it right now.
How's that working out for you so far?
Seems to be running smooth. We'll see how it does during the show, but yeah, it's good. This truck is great. I love this truck so far. I was like, I can't go back to a van after having this truck.
Yeah, during COVID, some of our branches were getting those extended cab trucks, the 4 doors with the K bodies on the back, the enclosed ones, and I was so jealous, man. Because I got a van during that time, and they got me a Nissan somehow, and I was like, I want a pickup truck. Give me a pickup truck. Nope. They had a truck that came here north, and they're like, oh, they need it for snow. And I'm like, no, they don't.
See, that's what I run out of. I run out of a truck, too. It's good and bad on that, though. I feel like sometimes I don't have enough room, but at the same time, can't beat it.
Yeah, for the ride and whatnot, you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you pull a trailer and stuff like that, I mean, van, I get that 3/4 ton van, but it's only got a 4.3 in it, dude. And I get that trailer loaded down, and some days I'm trying to back up the shop, and this is like hating life. Like, no, we're not going up here.
Right.
So it is what it is. I don't pay for it, so I just drive it until the wheels fall off.
Exactly.
Nice. So Troy, we've talked a little bit online back and forth, and you jumped on my my TikTok post about looking for guests. And I'm not going to lie, I am the worst person in the world for scheduling guests. You can ask Rich how many times on Monday I'm like, hey, I don't have a guest this week. You guys know anybody? I am terrible with it. So I appreciate you replying to that and messaging me and having you on. So let's get right into it. I asked you for a little brief bio about your background stuff, and I started reading through it. I was like, man, this kind of sounds a lot like me. So early on, you started out studying to be an electrician, and I was the same way. I actually came out of high school, went to a vocational program, came out as an electrician for years before I started doing this. So what originally drew you to that trade in high school?
Honestly, I just, seeing guys out in the field, growing up, my stepdad was a Class A building contractor, so I've always been around building. And, I don't know, something about it drew me to it. And still to this day, I still love it. I'll do some electrical for my buddy, like I was telling you earlier, owns an HVAC company, but he also is a master electrician. Well, his electrician's me. So I still do the electrical for him, but it's just one of those trades that you really can't beat. It's kind of like, the plumbing or the HVAC side, and any of those trades are great. What drew me away from it was seeing the guys that had been crawling underneath houses and in attics, for 40 years, 30 years. And I just, I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was doing track homes in apartments. So it was like one a day. It was the same thing over and over and over. And it made me hate life. My mind cannot handle that. So,
Yep.
So, you did that out of high school for a little bit, and then you took an opportunity at Hobart. How'd that come along?
Well, to be real honest, I had a company previously, and I was going through a divorce. And so you know how those go. And long story short, my grandpa, approached me and was like, hey boy, I know know, you kind of hit some hard times. Would you like to come over here to Hobart? And I said, well, let me think on it. Well, I didn't think on it very long. You know, he had been there, I don't know, 40 some years or 40 years at that point, made a really good living for himself. And I said, well, I'd be crazy not to take the opportunity. So I did. And here I am today, years and years later.
Nice. It's it seems like this industry, once you get in it, you're kind of like hooked.
Yeah.
Like, you don't go anywhere. It's like, and I don't know if that's because there's so much you can do or the variety or just the people, but this industry, just once it gets its hands on you, you're in it, man.
Yeah, I feel like it's just, you know, in this trade, it's always something new. And that's what I like about it. You know, it does challenge you. And just when you think you might know it all, you don't.
Yeah, I have a lot of fun doing it. And, you know, we're three different people here, but, you know, I'm in a company where I get to do a lot of cool stuff, do a lot of fun stuff. Rich, you know, he's branched out and done his own thing. You've been on your own for a few years now. You've had guys. You went back to smaller, you know, just you and your wife. There's a ton of opportunities here. There's a ton of work. You know, I see people all the time like, oh, I just didn't have any work when I was doing it. I was like, how'd you not have work, dude? I was like you can just like walk in someplace and be like, hey, you get something broke? Yeah. This is what I charge you. If you look at it.
I've told people joking that are starting their company, be like, just start walking into places and be like, hey, you guys called in a piece of equipment not working. You know, obviously joking, I say that, but it's true. If you did that, you'd probably be like, oh yeah, the fryer in the back. Oh yeah, the walk-in, this and that. Yeah.
It's always funny. And I tell my wife and, you know, a lot, of course, other people too, but, you know, I can basically pull up at any restaurant and just, you know, walk right in the back door if I want, even in regular street clothes. It's hilarious, really.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, you're definitely right as far as, you know, if you're running out of work in this industry, you're not doing something right.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's I mean, there is slower periods, but it's generally, they don't last very long.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, mine, and I tell, you know, we do slow down some, just like you guys. I find that we'll slow down this time of year, and then you know, within a week of Thanksgiving, in between those holidays, it gets crazy. You know, people, they can't have the stuff broke at Thanksgiving, you know, Christmas, that sort of thing.
Yeah, next week all hell will break loose right before Thanksgiving. I mean, like this week's kind of slow, but next week I'm like, I already know what's coming. I'm like, and I guess I got a guy his last day's Friday, and I'm like, next week's gonna suck.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is.
I'm glad I'm off Friday. I got a 3-day weekend. So what were those early years like at Hobart for you as a young technician?
Well, from the starters, you know, they put me with my, I call it's my grandfather, but I call him Paw.
Yeah.
They put me with my Paw, and I ran with him, I don't know, probably 6 months. It wasn't very long. And I remember one evening, I was the last one in the office, and they had an overtime call in, and it was on a Hatco booster. And Steve Nelson, which was the owner of the company, you know, they were trading as Hobart at that point, said, you think you can run a call? I said, what's it on? He said, a Hatco booster. And I said, yeah, I can do it. He said, all right, here's the keys. Get that van. Never turn back. And then from there on out, and back then you really didn't have no help. And he would hand me the service manuals for Hobart. And at that point, I'd never even been to school for it yet. And he'd be like, well, you're going to run this call, and this call today. Here's the service manuals and their paperbacks. And I just go out there and figure it out. I had no one.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I love that. You know, people always give Hobart a bad name.
Night and day difference now.
Yeah, but like those manuals are worth their weight in gold. Like I'd get my hands on one, or I'd see one. I'm like, holy cow, this thing is amazing. And now they're all on a laptop. You know, I'm like, that's what sets them apart. Is they have everything they need at their fingertips at least. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it at that.
Hobart gets picked on. That.
And they do that, you know, but you know, a lot of it has to do with, you know, they won't give no information unless you know someone, and that, you know, that makes it hard, and they've really made it hard now, even for me. Like their new C lines, and when I left years ago, you know, they had just come out with the AM16, which is, you know, all touchscreen. Well, they have Tech Connect, That's stuff you have to hook up a laptop to. I can't even get into it. Like the CLPS 86 that I worked on today, I put in a control board. Well, I know in the back of my head, I know the code to get in it. So I can program the control board for that jail today. No problem. Had they have the brand new one, I wouldn't be able to do nothing for them.
Dude, I seen a brand new one yesterday at a school. Like, they haven't even had it running yet because whoever installed it, I don't know, it's been sitting there for 2 weeks. They're waiting on something for the soap system. But I walked over the thing. I was like, holy cow, the screen on this thing, the touch screen. I was like, what is this thing?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, I won't be touching this for
What trips me out is how they keep everything on lock and then still tell customers that, hey, sorry, we're 3 weeks behind. You know what I mean? Like, you can't have the best of both worlds. If you're going to keep everything on lock, then you better have a way to get to every customer within 2-3 days of them placing the call, depending what it is. But we have customers calling us, can you work on this dishwasher? Hobart? No. Can you work on this, newer stuff? I'm like, gotta call Hobart. They're 3 weeks out, and that's what everybody's telling us. I'm like, that's where I have a problem with them keeping stuff on lock.
Yeah, I agree. That and their parts. Their parts are, I mean, you might as well have a Mercedes. I mean, you do essentially, but it's even for me and in Richmond, because I'm really the only one in Richmond that's in a smaller independent company that will work on Hobarts. Most everyone else won't touch them. And, really outside of the tech support end of it, I really don't understand why, because Hobart's no different than, working on a Jackson. And like today, I had to work on a Jackson right after that Hobart. And Jackson kind of intimidates me a little bit, where it's a Hobart, I can do it in my sleep. But essentially, they're both the same idea, the same parts, just different locations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I think a lot of guys freak out about the Hobart. But the problem is, if you do get stranded and you need help, you're not getting it.
Yeah.
Unless you know a technician is going to help you, you're just pretty much done for.
Yeah, that's true.
So I tell everybody to make friends with a Hobart tech.
Right. I thought my bread and butter is really not their, well, they're dishwashers, but most of my calls are mixers. And I'll tell you what, I make a ton of money on mixers.
I touched one, and I swear I'll never do. I got in a gearbox on one. I swear I'll never do it again. I'll do motors and other stuff, but once I get in that gearbox, I'm like, nope, not doing it. See you later. Call somebody else.
I did 2 last week for a bakery, V1401s, and I did the brake system for them. I did a bunch of things for them, and but yeah.
Yeah, I got my butt kicked early on, and I swore them off. So you eventually became a lead installer for Richmond and Norfolk district. What did that role really teach you?
Patience for one. Running a crew. One of the main reasons I was picked is, one, I could handle the pressure, and they could see that I can handle the pressure. I ran with some of the other guys that would run the installs, and those guys really didn't want to run them, but they seen if they weren't there, I took control and kind of ran with it. So patience was the main thing that I learned, but there's a lot to it. As you're dealing with the dealers. Mm-hmm. You're dealing, for us, it was the metal guys, the electricians, the HVAC guys. It taught me how to bid the jobs and how to really even though Hobart's higher, but it still taught me how to manage my time and that sort of thing. It taught me a lot. It really, really did.
Nice. That'd be pretty cool. I've installed some other brand flight machines, bring them together, bolt them together, tie the electrical together. And it was a lot of fun. I don't hardly ever get to do it, but I think the Hobart stuff would be, probably about the same way. It'd be a pretty cool project to work on some of those big giant flight machines, or some other stuff you guys do. Yeah,
the flight machines are my favorite. The rack ovens, the pain, but the flight machines I absolutely love.
Nice. So, any memorable installs or baptism by fire service calls from those days at Hobart?
Well, we had. I'll tell you. I'll make it quick, but we have a metal company here in Richmond, and actually they sell and do duct throughout the United States for people. I won't mention their names because of the situation, but we had a rack oven one night for a Panera that we were installing. Well, on their contracts, and I had at that point I wasn't lead, but as I became lead in their contracts, and because of this situation, they actually put in there, you must have ductwork clean prior. Well, they didn't have that in the contract, and they were supposedly verbally told, and I'm sure they were, it's Panera. And the duct guys were cutting the metal ductwork and caught the whole flue on fire. Fire department showed up, police showed in the middle of the night because all Paneras are done at night.
Yeah.
Yep. That was something fun. I'll never forget that.
I don't think I've ever had the fire department called, but I've done some pretty dumb stuff in the past. So
Yeah, I have too. I can't say I haven't. I'll tell you one that I probably shouldn't say, but I'll tell you one that I did on my own years and years ago. And I showed you today, it's a company here that sells restaurant equipment. Gusty. And those guys are great. I absolutely love them. But long story short, I had their guys on a job. And the way it works for them is they sell the equipment, they deliver the equipment, they set the equipment in place. Well, I'm not just going to stand there. I disconnect, reconnect. So they're moving. I disconnected a flat top, and with the quick connect hose, I had on this job for sure. I had them, well, now do always, but I had them replacing the quick connect hose also. I said it needs to be replaced with the unit. So there was no one there. The restaurant was about 9:30 in the morning. There was, well, I say no one. There was a couple people in the kitchen, but the place was closed. Long story short, I had to quick connect off, and I did not cap that gas valve. So we're moving the flat top in, and as we're moving it in, one of the guys, and it's a 60-inch flat top, so it's 4 of us on the flat top holding it. And one of the guys said, "You smell gas?" I said, "I don't smell nothing." And about that time, about 40 foot away, it exploded on the other end of the kitchen, lit up on the convection ovens and range down there. And it was shooting, I shit you not, a 40-foot flame out of that ball valve. And I don't know how I held on to my side of the flat top, because 2 of the guys left, and it was me and another guy on each side of the flat top. And I reached over and smacked the valve shut. And so from that day on, I will not leave that ball valve. I will either cap it or leave the hose on it until I'm ready. But that could have been a really bad situation.
Yeah,
I've got a real bad day.
I've got a similar situation like that. I was at one of the chicken places that are around now, and they called like 9 in the morning and said, "Hey, none of our fryers work." I was like, "Did you clean the floors last night?" They're like, "No." I was like, "Just push on your gas hose and see if that works." And that's my famous thing for on call on weekends. You know, like, did you clean last night? Yeah, check your gas hose. Like, make sure your gas hose is plugged in and call me back. And they never call me back. So that's what it always is, you know. And they're thankful that they have to pay me, $400 or $500 to go out there and push the gas hose back on. But they're like, "No, we didn't do anything last night." They're like, "The gas hose is on." So me being myself, that's a smart ass, I went in there, didn't take no tools in, walked up, and I leaned over the fryer, and I grabbed the gas line, and I pulled, and I'm holding the gas line, and it's attached to the unit, and I'm holding the female end, and the male end's on the valve, just taking it straight up in the air, just dumping gas out of the engine. And I was like, I reach over and stick my hand over it, but I can't shut the valve off. And I'm like, the restaurant's open, and I'm like, what the hell do I do now? So now I don't ever just pull it. I'm always push them down. But I was trying to be a smart ass to prove my point, and it backfired.
Yeah, that's well, speaking of that, not being able to get to the gas valve, I actually had one last week that was a Hobart HEG, old school Hobart convection oven. I fixed it numerous times, and I've been telling the guy for the last couple of years, "Hey, we should replace it." But he didn't want to spend the money. Well, last week I went out. They said, "Hey, that thing tripped a breaker," so we reset it. It tripped it again, so I moved it to another outlet. Now that outlet don't work. It's on a GFI. I said, "Lord have mercy, stop moving the thing." And I said, "Well, I'll be out there whatever time it was." So I showed up. I found some burnt wiring. Couldn't really find too much that was really wrong with it. Repaired the burnt wiring on it, and reset everything. Plugged it back in. I said, "Sweet, it's running." He's like, "Oh, thank goodness. I thought you were going to say it's done for." And I said, "No, it's running." So we're standing there BSing talking, and 2 or 3 minutes goes by, and all of a sudden, out of the bottom of that thing right there at the control where it meets near the burner, it goes whoop, whoop, and there's a flame shooting out of it. And for everything I had, I was freaking. I reached back there and was trying to hit the gas valve, but the convection ovens were slid so tight against the wall, I couldn't get to the gas valve. I reached by and finally unplugged it and tried to pull the cover away. And as you went to pull the cover, the oxygen would get to it and the flame would go up even more. And finally, after it felt like an eternity. It's probably 15 seconds. It finally went out. But long story short, we got rid of those ovens right then and there. And Gusty, who I was telling you about, I called him. I said, "You got a double stack?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Bring them." And I installed them right then. I told that guy, I said, "Man, I've been telling you for years, this thing, it's going to burn the place down." And if you got time, I got one more that's really good that we make a joke. This same guy, he owns a bunch of restaurants and small grocery stores. Last year, I got a call, and it was right at Christmas. No, it was right at Thanksgiving. Got a call, an overtime call. I actually took my son with me, my 16-year-old. He's been going with me a lot. Went out, and I was on a range. And while I was out there, one of the guys said, "Hey, man, does this wall feel too hot?" And it was right beside big pot burners. And I put my hand on the wall, and I was like, "Dude, that wall, I'm telling you, it's on fire inside. Do you really?" I said, "I'm telling you, it's on fire." And after going back and forth, I said, "Call the fire department now." He ended up calling the fire department. Now, the owner would call me and yell at me for calling the fire department. They're going to cut in. Sure enough, they cut into the outside of that building with chainsaws, and it was on fire. I saved it, and it had an apartment complex above it. And basically, I saved that whole place from burning down. That was last Thanksgiving, and they still give me crap about that. They were like, "You saved that place." I said, "Yep."
That's funny.
That's wild.
Yep.
So, what was the turning point that made you decide you wanted to do your own thing and start Chef's Choice Restaurant Repair?
I think more just the corporate stuff. You know, being in corporate world was totally different. I tried to become a branch manager because my old boss retired after 41 years. I was basically shot down. I was told that they didn't have time to teach me, but they ended up hiring a guy that was a manager at Rent-A-Center, believe it or not. Never even seen a piece of equipment. So that alone kind of really struck a nerve, like really bad.
That sounds like corporate.
Yep. But, a lot of it had to do with, the paperwork side. I did so many quotes. I was doing all the quotes, all the site reviews, plus the installs, helping the guys. And I said, I can just, if I'm going to do everything, I might as well do everything and at least get paid for it. And so I think, that's really what made me do it.
Nice. So the early years probably was quite a bit of struggling and learning curve for you, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely. I made my fair share of mistakes. You learn. I think the only thing that helped me was the electrical background, and not really more of the company I worked for was a company here in Richmond, and we didn't do new homes. We did service upgrades, generators, and troubleshooting only.
Yeah.
Or rewires. We would do a rewire. But when the electricians were slow, they would send me with the HVAC guys. And that's how I got my EPA card and started to learn some of that. And then if they were slow, I'd go with the plumbers. And that's how I learned, solder copper, etc. But I learned the control side with the low voltage on the HVAC. And I think that's really what helped me. And still this day still helps me understand the low voltage, the control side of things. But yeah, I struggle. And like I say, I learn new stuff every day.
Did you have any business mentors, anybody you talked to before you did, or you just kind of did it yourself and learned as you went?
I just kind of did it myself. Made a lot of mistakes, to be honest. I'm just
what was
stubborn,
that transition like?
What, from
A
Hobart
lot of people,
to
they ask me, just from tech to business owner, because that's one of the biggest questions I get when people reach out to me looking to start their own company. They want to know what's the transition like from technician to business owner. So in your words, how would you describe that?
I would say, the biggest change is everything's on you. If you've got guys that are out here with your name, on the truck riding around, everything's on you. If they get in an accident or if they don't, put a cap on that gas valve and they blow the restaurant, I think that's the biggest thing from going from a service tech to being a business owner is you have to understand that everything's on you. And you can look at the glass half full, But, on the service side, you're looking at the money and seeing, what these guys make or seeing the revenue, should I say, that these guys are doing, but they're not understanding really what comes with that, and a lot of responsibility, a lot of headaches. You don't get time off, even when it's just me, or even especially when I had guys, you don't get no time off. That phone stays with you. You go on vacation, this phone stays with you. You could be at a funeral, that phone's with you. You got to have it with you. And I think that's the biggest thing that people don't understand, that it's a lot. It's a 24/7 job.
Yeah, people don't understand that. I mean, it's your name out there, and there's a lot that goes with it. I don't envy anybody that does it. I want everybody, if they want it, it's something they want to do, just be prepared to put in some hours. Rich is the perfect example. Just because you hire more guys doesn't mean you work less. It's just about the opposite.
No,
Makes more work.
I think it does.
If you're not in the field, you're at home doing paperwork, you're doing estimates, you're doing payroll, you're sending out letters trying to get paid. It's just, there's a lot more than just fixing stuff, man. There's a lot of guys that can fix anything, and they cannot run a business to save their life.
I think I'm going to touch on that point. You said getting paid, being self-employed, and getting paid. At one point we did a lot of jails and hospitals, because we are small, so we're even spam. I've gotten to a point now where a lot of times I'll turn those down just because of the weight. Even for a smaller company like us, one Hobart dishwasher motor might be $5,000, might be $8,000. You do 3 of those in a month, and you're waiting 90 days to get your money back. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, that's always been my
that's a good point. That's for me, one of the biggest transitions, now that you say that, is when we started doing bigger stuff. Like when I had to pay for my first RTU that we changed out, and I'm like, how much did I just send them? I just sent Lennox how much money? I texted my business coach and said, bro, I'm gonna go lay down for like 3 days and recover. So yeah, that's something I never think to tell people, is the shock of putting out money, and then when you have to wait to recoup that money, it can be a big adjustment.
It is, and that's that would be my biggest advice for somebody that's gonna go on their own or thinking about going on their own. Save every penny you got. Just because you're getting those checks in constant doesn't mean you should be blowing them. You need to sit on some money, especially in times where, like I say, you might get 2 or 3 motors that are $5,000 a piece, and then hell, you might have a walk-in down where you've got to, do a change out, and that change out might cost you another $15,000. It just adds up quickly. Plus payroll, then taxes. It's a lot. If you're legit, then it costs.
Yeah, I'm sure Rich can attest to that. Had some conversations. I'm like, I don't know how you do this, man. He's like, I just sent this much money to somebody, and I'm like, oh boy.
Yep.
I do not envy that.
Yeah.
So you said your end goal was time for your family. How has owning a business helped you or challenged, or has that been a challenge for you, you to reach that goal?
Well, I'm gonna be honest, when I had guys, it was hell. It really it made it hard. With just me and my wife now, it still makes it hard because it's me. And so and I do, like I said, I do bring my son, my 16-year-old. He's gotten to a point now where he's putting in, sit valves on garlands, etc. So he could definitely, here in the next few months, I think this coming up summer, he's probably gonna, run in his truck and at least do parts in. But it's good and bad. I can kind of pick and choose my customers. My really good customers, I won't tell them no. But it has allowed me to have more time because I can do my own schedule. So, for instance, when I was at Hobart coaching baseball and softball, because I was doing both at one time, now I usually just pick one or the other. Just getting off was hell. And then coming out the city, et cetera. Whereas now I know, okay, well, I need to be at the ball field at 4:30. Well, my last calls will be at 2:00, and that's that. And so it's made it a little bit easier for me to spend time with my family. Those kids, they're only going to be kids once, and I've got a house full. I've got 4 kids left in my house. I had 5. The oldest is 20. So my household is full.
That's fun. So you said your 16-year-old, does he want to work for you, or just kind of just tag along, or is that just a goal of his? Or
his goal is to do HVAC or refrigeration. He loves working with me on the equipment, but he's gonna. My whole family's military. He's gonna go in the military, let them train him on the HVAC or refrigeration side, and then come out, and either he's gonna stay in and do it, or he's gonna finish out his contract and then come out and work for me or work for somebody else. But he wants to be in the kitchens. Yep.
cool. It's a like I said earlier, man. Once you get in here, it kind of just takes.
Yep.
So since launching in 2017, what has been the biggest lessons you've learned as a business owner in the industry?
That's a pretty good question. I would say, like I touched on earlier, the biggest thing would be not to be, spending your money, right off the jump, at least from the get-go. Pick and choose wisely who you hire. That's a big thing. And that makes it hard sometimes when you really need help. Especially if you train a guy for a year and then he decides to leave or go elsewhere. And I've had that happen. You invest a lot of time and money into somebody. I would say the money is the biggest thing. It's a lot, you see the revenue, but revenue isn't it. So,
yeah, you see that money come in. People see the money come in, or they, you text see that ticket. They see, $15,000, $20,000 for a walk-in cooler rebuild or whatever. They don't realize that you've got $10,000, $12,000 wrapped up into parts alone,
yep,
and your labor, and everything on the back end. They may see that $15,000, $20,000, but if you can make $1,000 on that job or whatever, you're like, hey, we did good. You know what I mean? People don't understand what it takes to make that $15,000, $20,000. They just see that $15,000 to $20,000 and they're like, oh, that's a great pay. Well,
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
They don't see what you actually make, right? Because one of the biggest things you see techs say is, well, I'm making $40 an hour and they're charging $120 an hour, so they're making all this money. And I'm like, one of the things I was doing today was calculating what we call our loaded labor. So you got your labor rate, which is I pay a guy $45 an hour.
Yep.
But when you factor everything else, and I'm not even done factoring, right now my per hour labor is actually right around just under $81 an hour when you factor all the expenses. But the technicians never see that. My guys do because I'm open with them about it.
Yeah.
But in general, we think, oh, I'm making 40. They're charging 125. Look at all this money they're making. And it's like, yeah, no, but by the time it's all said and done, we're lucky if we're making 12. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't, and a lot of them don't understand too. So if they're paying, or you are, like, we use QuickBooks, and so like if we pay an employee X amount of dollars, and let's say 300 goes to taxes for him out of that paycheck, well, we're paying 300 also if the company is. So it's double that, but they don't see that, and I guess that's the right way they explain it, but they don't see that. It's a lot more to it. Like you say, if they're making 40, 45 an hour, basically it's really 80 an hour. But by the time you do the van, the maintenance, the taxes, the workers' comp, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of back end stuff people don't think about. They think, oh, I can just go do this and I can charge this and make this much amount of money. Yeah, well, maybe, but good luck.
Yeah, exactly. I think
that's what scared me out of it. That and the whole collecting thing is the two things. Like, I've got it pretty easy, pretty made to do what I get to do. So unless something changes, I'll probably be here for a while.
Well, see, we switched a few years ago, and I always kind of frowned on companies for doing it, requiring credit card companies or not companies, but credit cards on file. And it got to a point, if we don't know you, and we hadn't done business for you, especially a mom and pop shop, then we're going to require it. And I hate to be that guy, but I have been burned, and we don't play it. And it sucks. It's got to be that way. It shouldn't be that way. You should be able to trust people, but it's not how the world is.
Yeah.
What's your take on the credit card customer there, Rich?
And thankfully, I haven't had to do that. I thought I was going to do it, starting out, but most of the accounts we've picked up have been bigger accounts, so that's not even an option.
Yep.
And with the handful of accounts that we have, I mean, honestly, in 19 months, I think I've been burned for $600, and it
Yeah.
wasn't even from the same account. So it hasn't been anything I've needed to do, but it is something that's in the back of my mind that at some part we're gonna have to get credit cards up front for people we don't know. Now, if we're doing a bigger job, then for sure it's getting a deposit to cover all my expenses. But thankfully, I haven't had to chase really anybody.
And that's what I do with the installs. I'll get a deposit up front to cover, let's say a evap and condenser, to at least cover that. And, all materials. I don't worry about the labor too much, but I do, I will have them cover that. Another thing when it comes to that, it's mainly, like you say, the bigger accounts. If I do jails or any hospitals, things for the county, stuff like that, I know I'm going to get my money. I just have to wait on it. So I don't worry about it with them, but mainly the mom and pop shops. I actually had one call me 2 weeks ago, and he did call me. He seen me on another install, and I recognized the guy, but it had been from years ago. So I couldn't put two and two together. Well, he ended up calling our office number. So my wife answered and ended up talking to the guy. And she was like, well, I don't know. I'll have to look back to see, what times we have, et cetera. So, I'll get back with you, because he wanted us to come out and pick up a food trailer and bring it to our shop and do a bunch of work. So anyway, long story short, she called me. She said, you know that guy that just called? I said, yeah. She said, he owes us money, $300 from 2019. I picked up the phone. I said, we're not doing nothing for you. I mean, money, buddy. And long story short, he ended up paying. It was his brother that did it. And we've been doing a ton of work for him since. But it's funny how that goes around. People don't call, and then those years later, they think you forgot. I ain't forget.
That's funny.
Yep.
So what makes Jeff's Choice different in terms of the service you offer? Because you do hot side, cold side, wear wash installs. What's probably your niche that's like you guys are known for?
Hobart.
So
to be upfront about it. I mean, mainly Hobart and refrigeration outside of that. But I'm known for being a go-getter, as they always told me at Hobart. He's a go-getter. I don't cut corners. Even though I'm small, you don't find me on eBay ordering parts. I get OEM parts every single time. I will not cut corners. If I think I can bypass something, let's say an on-off switch for the day or for a few hours, then I will do it. Other than that, I'm not doing it. You're just going to be down. It's my company, my name on it, my insurance. So the biggest thing I think is being a go-getter and doing it right and trying to do it right the first time.
Nice. That's a good way to be, for sure. So let's talk about life outside the van. I know you hunt because I've been following along. You've been saying I love to hunt too. Well, I used to. This year's kind of a little bit different story for me. But what do those hobbies give you that day-to-day grind doesn't?
Room to breathe. Especially hunting. As we both know, hunting. I can't really answer the phone. I can kind of browse the internet a little bit. Wonder why I'm not shooting nothing because I'm looking at Facebook, but mainly it just clears my head. And I love my family and I love my business, but it allows me to step away and have 5 minutes to myself. And the fishing the same way by all means, but hunting definitely, because up until now, or up until Saturday at least, it's still hunting. So I'm by myself and it's quiet. So
nice. Yep. Yeah, it's definitely different out there. I'll scroll my phone a little bit, but like just sitting out there, just hearing, birds and squirrels and what you think is big monster bucks, it's really some fat squirrel falling out of a tree somewhere. Yeah. It's definitely different. It's rewarding. It's just like like you said, you can just breathe. You don't have to worry about anything and just look around and wait for something to come out, and then hopefully something comes out. But it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah.
It's amazing how smart a deer really is.
They're brilliant.
The things that stay in the middle of the road, stare at a car doing 70 miles an hour and stare at the headlights. Well,
no.
Read everything in the woods. It's crazy. So
yep,
that's cool. I know you're involved with your kids a lot. You've talked about coaching baseball, softball. How did you get into coaching, and what's your favorite part about, doing those things with your kids?
Well, I grew up playing ball, and then once I hit high school and, started messing with the ladies, I gave up the baseball. And I always look back, I said, man, I wish, I kind of wish I'd have played more, And so when my kids got old enough, now they skip T-ball. I'm not, I like T-ball, I believe in it, but at the same time, it's, the kids are so young, they really don't grasp it. So I started mine out right outside of that in minors. And the very first year I knew I wanted to coach. And when I signed them up, I put on there, at the bottom, hey, if y'all need a coach, and I was thinking assistant coach, I just help out, call me. Well, the league called me, all my family's in this county, but the league called and they were like, hey, you want to be head coach? And I was like, oh crap. And so you think running a business is scary. Try having, 13, 7-year-olds looking at you and all the parents in the stand. Yeah.
Yep. I've been there. I coached my daughter's softball. I coached my boys baseball, football. It's a blast, and that kind of leads to my next question. How do you balance work and hobbies and all that stuff? I know it can be hard. So how do you do it?
You don't. You just I try to squeeze in every bit I can. Like, for instance, with the hunting this week, right off the jump, it's the last week of muzzleloader. Well, I'm in the woods. I'm fortunate enough, I've got a few acres, so I go right behind the house, and I go back there 2 hours before work, and I've been leaving late for work, and late as 8 o'clock. I should be out of here at 6:37, but all week, I'm leaving at 8, and then I'll cut out a little bit early, And when I say a little bit early, I'll cut out at 3:30 if I can, so I can get in the woods. But that'll only be for this week, Outside of that, baseball, that sort of thing, I just kind of push off the customers when I have to. I can't stress it enough. They're only kids once. My daughter's 20, and like I say, she doesn't even live here. She went into the Marine Corps, and back in the summer, and fractured her hip and had to come out, and she's got to start over. But long story short, I feel like I missed a lot of years and things I probably should have done, but I was working. So with her moving out and doing what she's done, it kind of opened my eyes a little bit. Man, maybe I need to spend a little bit more time with the family. They ain't gonna be here forever. So
yeah, I did the same thing. When I first started, I didn't make near the money I made now, and I just worked. I didn't go on vacation. I sent my wife on vacation with the kids and her mom. I just, put my nose down, just did what I had to do. And looking back, I've missed a lot of things, but, I've talked to my kids and they understand, why I did the things I did. But once I got a little better off, I always made sure I could do everything I could do, go to the games or be there for them if they had something at school or program. And I remember one day I took the day off to go to my son's 6th grade graduation. And I took the day off. I was on call. Like, well, you're on call? I'm like, yeah, that's after 5 o'clock. And my dispatcher called me at 10 o'clock, said he had an emergency overtime walk-in cooler. I said, at 10 o'clock in the morning? He goes, yeah, I need you to come in and do it. And I said, no, you have a scheduling conflict. You better figure it out. And I said, if it's here at 5 o'clock, it's a different story. And I hung up on him.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, I'm like, you have a scheduling problem. Figure it out. You got 7 hours for it. You can call me. So,
hey, I wasn't going to cut you short, but I see the little thing at the bottom. Y'all can see that Todd, can't you?
Yeah, Todd Durante.
Yeah, he works for Hobart. He used to do installs under me quite a bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, you said something that kind of struck home. You said, memory is over money. That's a strong motto. And where did you get that from?
Honestly, I don't know. It's just money comes and goes. We all know that. We're all got a little bit of age on us now. Hell, some of us are considered middle-aged. So, it's just all the years, I look back and I'm like I was saying, missing things with kids and, the wife and family and vacations and that sort of thing. There's my memories are work. I'm just, I'm a workhorse, and I know you guys are too. I'm about it. When I'm there for work, I'm there for work. But, I guess as I've, maybe I'm getting soft in my old age. I don't know. It's just one of them things where, I'd rather make those memories. I still got to have the money. I still want to retire, but it's, some things are just above that.
Yeah, that's a great point. But sometimes it does take money to make memories too, though.
Yeah, it does.
There's a balance there. So
it is.
What kills me is, you see these guys all the time online talk about work-life balance. I'm like, and they want to dog someone out for doing something. And I'm like, well, what if that's their balance? What if that works for them? What if they're happy? What if their family's happy? I'm like, everybody wants to judge everybody else's work-life balance. And like, are you just upset with yours? So you're going to pick on someone else about theirs? Like, everybody's different. Everybody has a different need. Let them be, and if they can't see their family's falling apart or, loved ones are moving on, then maybe that's a different conversation to have. But if everything's going good, leave them alone.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. And I still miss things with the kids, sometimes, when you got to work, you got to work. But yeah, it's hard to find a balance. I don't even, there's no way I could really, I think, give any advice on that. You just pick and choose your battles.
Yeah, I don't think there is a balance. I think the key is just be where you're at. You know what I mean? So if you're at work, give 150%. But if you're with your family, give 150%. If you're with your friends, give the same. I think that's the most you can do. Because I don't think work-life balance is realistic. There's times where we spent over the summer, right? I told you guys how much we did each month over the summer. I mean, we were working basically nonstop. Yeah. Now that it's slower, you know what I mean? Spend more time with the family. My guys can go home early and they're cool, going home a couple hours early now because they were killing it in the summer. It's just take advantage of the opportunity that's in front of you.
And that's just it. I couldn't agree more. I mean, when it's there, it's there. And then when it, it's slower, you get your time. So, yep.
So if someone was to ask you, if they're thinking about starting their own business, do you have any advice you'd give them?
Try and build a good customer base. I don't recommend, like when I left Hobart, I didn't bring none of the Hobart customers. For one, I had an agreement signed with them. But two, I didn't. I would, if that's the route you want to go, I would hit the ground on your time off. If you can't moonlight, I don't know what to tell you, but I would hit the ground off and at least hit the pavement and make an appearance, make a showing into, supply houses. Like I say, Gusty Restaurant Equipment is one of the people that sell equipment. If you guys have a place like that, stop in there, introduce yourself, tell them what you do for a living, and what you're thinking about doing. And, try to get your foot in the door with as many people as you can. And then once you decide to take that leap, like we said before, you can, if you're out to eat, and I remember doing it when I first started, I was out to eat. I always had a business card with me. I'd joke and, I'd say, hey, I used to work for Hobart, the waitress right there. I said, who the heck's working on your equipment? And the girl started laughing. I don't know who's in there. I said, well, get the manager over here. And they come over. I said, who's back there messing your equipment up? And he started laughing, or she started laughing. I said, you need somebody, dependent? Well, there's, they're good, but sometimes they can't get to us. Let me take your number. So that, I think that's my advice is basically I would pound the ground and hit it running hard before you decide to do that. That way you have something, there and you have an income. Another thing that I always used to tell my techs, when you're in a kitchen, if you let me in your kitchen, I'll have work. I can find work. Every steamer you walk by, that door's leaking, say something.
Mm-hmm.
Door gaskets, things like that. You can pick up all the work you want. And not only can you pick up the work, you make your own schedule. And not only do you make your own schedule, you can pick the easier jobs. It's a no-brainer. At Hobart, we got paid compensation, for doing that. And I was very good at it. I'd walk by, be in the kitchen. And if I was in your kitchen, I'd walk by, like I say, steam. It was always steamers. I walk by, I'd be like, steam's rolling out the door. You want me to do something about that gas? Yeah, we've been dealing with that for a while. I said, well, I can get you one order. Okay. Well, I just made my own schedule. Not only did I make the company money or now myself, but I made my own schedule. And it's easy.
It's amazing how many guys walk past all kinds of stuff. You look at a cooler, the gasket's hanging out, the door won't close all the way. There's money everywhere. You just gotta look around. I'm like,
Yeah.
we have a tech add-on contest. And I don't compete because I just blow everybody out. I just do the tech add-on, that little thing on there. But like, if you go into a kitchen and you're not walking out with at least one add-on, you're not doing your job, man.
Yep. I really believe in that. Yep.
Yeah, you're doing your customer disservice for sure.
100%.
So, what do you think the industry needs more of right now? Is it technicians? Is it companies? Is it manufacturers helping out? What do you think the industry's lacking?
Now look, that's a tough one because it's a little bit of everything, really.
Yeah, there's no answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think the manufacturers, some of them need to do a better job with, tech support, getting the, making sure that the parts are available. On the other side of it, I feel like there's not enough technicians out here. I mean, as we all know, we can, on a busy time, we can be backed up with so many calls you can't even see straight. So I think on both ends, it could use some help. The biggest thing is like you say, a lot of people are very unaware of this being a trade and being a very good trade.
Yeah, it's I think spreading awareness what the trade is. That's kind of what this has kind of turned into this show. But I think training is probably what we're lacking the most of, is adequate training for guys. There's some programs out there, but then it seems like when it gets down to certain levels, it's just go, go, go. Just have a ride with somebody. That person may not always be the best thing. Like, I feel sorry for guys around with me because I don't work on a middle-volt fryer. I don't work on a basic convection oven. I don't work on a gas range. And both of my sons have came up through me, and they go on their own. And they see a middle-volt fryer, and they're like just beating their head against the wall because I don't get to work on a middle-volt fryer. And I tell the office, like, hey, like, this is the stuff you're going to send them on when they're out on their own. You may want to give some of me so I can run it through them.
Yeah.
But it just because someone's your go-to doesn't mean they're your guy. You need training people because they're not going to get a chance to see that kind of stuff they're going to see.
Yeah. I understand that. At Hobart, it was like that for me. They would try and send some guys to train with me, but I'm like, you're sending them, let's say, on a rationale, that you're sending a newbie on a rationale. That's not doing him any good. I opened the panel, the side panel. He's freaking, he don't know what's what. And, I know technicians have been doing it 15 years and barely can tell you what's what inside of one of those. I think the training aspect, I think it's a mixture of things, but I think the main thing is not spending enough time training, and I know it's hard, especially if I bring a guy on. Rich, I'm sure you're probably the same way. We need those guys to make money, but the bigger companies out there, I feel like that they don't spend enough time. They have the money to allow these techs to spend a little bit more time, either in the field training or in school. And I feel like that's a big issue.
And I would add to that is the willingness to train. And I mean, I think I say this every time somebody asks me the question, but these service companies, we need to get it out of our head that we're going to hire that unicorn guy that's been doing this for 20 years.
Yep.
He can fix everything. You don't got to worry about him. That guy's not leaving his job. You know what I mean? That guy walks into his manager and says, hey, Rich just offered me this. The manager's going to beat it. They're going to match it. They're going to offer him more than I can. But that's what we keep doing. And the larger companies do that. The smaller companies do it. I'm like, we need to adapt the industry to say, okay, there's a lack of qualified technicians, mainly because most of them are aging out. There are a lot of young people that have good work ethics, that are smart as hell, that don't want to be in an office. They want to do this type of work, but nobody wants to train them. One of the things we're working on is, being able to train. I got my son, he's been riding with me since we started. He's 21 now, and early next year, he should be ready to go on his own. But I'm going to send him to a bunch of Cefeza trainings. I got one of his friends who's, I think, 2021, doesn't know anything about anything, but he's worked with us, putting some walk-ins together, doing some PMs. And he's like, as soon as you guys are ready to hire me, he's ready to jump ship. So I'm working to see how to budget to be able to afford training him 6 months, a year, whatever it takes. But if we don't adapt that mindset, I mean, we're going to screw ourselves because those unicorn people, they're not leaving their jobs unless, something catastrophic happens. And Pat, I mean, you're not leaving your job. Somebody can offer you the world and your job will double it because of how much value you bring them.
Yeah, and that's the thing we've ran into is like we've hired a couple guys, so their resume looks great on paper, and then you get them here and you're like, oh, this is terrible. Like, there's a reason why
Well,
they're looking for a job.
that's the other thing too, right? They got this great resume. Why are they looking for a job? If they
Yep.
didn't just move to the area, why are they looking for a job if they're really that great?
Yep. Yep. But on the other side of that, the way I feel like even with Hobart, I say Hobart because that's besides me, that's what I have to lean on. And I feel like it's probably this way for quite a few companies. Why does it? And for me, I think differently because of this. Why does it take a good technician to have to put in a 2 weeks to get a raise?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm losing one of my my second reefer tech. Hey, he's come a long way on some of the other stuff we put him on. And like he complained about stuff. And then now he's out the door and they're like trying to get him to stay. And he's like, no, I've told you what needed to happen, for months. And it never happened. And finally, enough's enough. And he's leaving.
Yeah. It shouldn't get to that.
The good thing is a lot of the independent companies are changing that. Like I've got a buddy that his company is a good size, and I think he told me they do quarterly reviews. And a family member of mine went to work for him, and he knew nothing. He started him out, I think, $18 an hour. Within a few months, he was at 21. A couple months after that, got his own van, got another raise. I mean, and that's all within less than a year. So yeah, the smaller independent companies are changing that. I personally think if you wait for your tech to be pissed off or to be quitting to try to give them a raise, then you've been screwing them the whole time because they're worth more than what you're paying them.
Yep, and I've been down the road. And funny thing is, about a month ago, I actually had to call because I couldn't get a part for a mixer, and so I called the branch manager. I hadn't talked to him in years since I left Hobart, but I called him. It was basically begging him to find me this part. And long story short, I asked him when he was on the phone. I said, "Man, y'all sure are desperate now." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I just got a postcard from corporate from you guys." Offering me all my vacation pay back, everything to come back. And I did. I sent him a picture of the postcard. He said, I didn't even know we were doing those. I said, y'all must be bad off. He's like, we are.
8 years later, they're still begging you to come back.
Yeah. I know. I was like, man.
That's funny. Well, Troy, it's been great to finally talk to you and catch up to you. You got a pretty cool story. You're doing things a little differently just so you can be there for your family, and that's highly commendable. I think it's great that you've realized what you need to do as far as own a business and as a father, as a husband, as a family member, and that really means that you put a lot in and you understand what you got to do, and that's great. So
yeah,
I appreciate you taking time to come on. Do you want to shout out any of your social medias? I don't know if you're very public or not. I've kind of ran into you a couple different platforms, but if you want to shout anything out, I'll get people to follow you on some of the stuff. You can show off some of your work or maybe some hunting videos or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I don't do too much on social media, but I do have, I've got my website, Chef's Choice, INC. That's on Facebook. You can find me on there. You can find me on Duff'em on TikTok.
Yeah.
You might find some stuff that's kind of hilarious. But yeah, for the most part, if I had to shout out anybody, it would be the people that are helping me, which is restaurant equipment repair, Lori over there, and then Gusty, like I told you, Gusty restaurant equipment, and Pollock's Heating and Air. So those three they're my backbone. So I really, really couldn't be doing it without them. And thank you guys both for being on here. It's definitely an honor.
Yeah, I'm glad to get you on here, man. I followed you for a little bit. It was really cool that you stepped up. Like I said, I am probably the worst person to try to host and get guests on a podcast. There's Tuesday mornings. I'm like, I don't have a guest yet. I think I said it yesterday. Then you popped up, so it worked out. But I appreciate you coming on and taking time, telling your story, and talking about how you got into this and what it's meant to you. So thanks, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Have a good night, guys.
Yep.
Ciao.
If you guys would, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast. It really helps us grow and helps us know which direction to move in. Also, If you have any suggestions for guests, please email me at commercialkitchenchronicles@gmail.com. Or if you want to be a guest, email me. Love to have you guys on. Thanks a lot. See you next week.